I was working the passport control desk at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam when an American woman in her 50s walked up to my counter. She slapped down her passport and said, "I need to get through here fast. My connecting flight to Paris leaves in 40 minutes. I glanced at her passport, then at her boarding pass. "Ma'am, your flight is tomorrow. Same time, not today," she blinked. "What? No, it says right here." "Oh." She looked at the date format. Day, month, year. Not month, day, year. Her face went pale. "I've been rushing through this airport for nothing?" I nodded. She'd already missed a museum visit she'd planned for today. She just stood there, staring at her ticket like it had betrayed her. That moment? That's when I realized something. Americans don't just struggle at airports. They completely misunderstand how airports work outside the United States. And I don't mean the big stuff, like security lines or customs forms. I mean the small details that add up into total chaos, like the guy at Heathrow who tried to pay for a sandwich with a $100 bill. The woman at Narita who thought domestic terminal meant flights to America. The family at Dubai International who started unpacking a full picnic in the boarding area because they didn't understand the food court hours. These weren't rare incidents. They happened constantly, almost daily. In fact, I've worked airport jobs in 3 different countries over the past 8 years. Immigration officer, gate agent, information desk, and every single shift. Without fail, I'd see an American traveler do something that made me think, how did they get this far? I document these patterns because most travel advice skips the details that actually matter if you want the ground-level truth about international travel. The stuff guidebooks won't tell you. This channel breaks it down every week. Subscribe so you don't become one of these stories. The thing is, most of them aren't rude. They're not trying to cause problems. They're just operating on a completely different set of assumptions that work fine in Dallas or Denver, but fall apart the moment they land in Dusseldorf or Delhi. But that was just the beginning. The worst day I ever had on information desk duty was at Copenhagen Airport on a Thursday morning in March. A young American guy, maybe 23, wearing a college hoodie, walked up to me around 9. He looked stressed. Really stressed. "My flight to Stockholm leaves at 1500 hours, he said. "That's 3 p.m., right?" "Yes," I said. "You have plenty of time." He nodded, relieved. Then he asked, "So what time is it now?" "My phone died." I pointed to the clock on the wall behind me. "Big digital numbers? Clear as day." "Oh, 900, I said. "9 in the morning." He stared at the clock, then at me, then back at the clock. "That says 0900. How is that 9? I realized what was happening. He didn't understand 24-hour time at all. "The first 2 digits are the hour," I explained slowly. 09 is 9 a.m. 1500 is 3 p.m. "But why not just write 9? He asked. He sounded genuinely frustrated, like this was a personal attack on his ability to function. "Who uses zeros like that?" "Most of the world," I said. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic. It was just true. He wandered off, muttering something about military time. I watched him sit down near the gate and pull out a pen. He started writing on his boarding pass, converting all the times into 12-hour format, every single time. Departure, arrival, boarding, everything. It took him 20 minutes. About 3 hours later, I saw a different American at the same desk, a woman in her 40s, business suit, rolling a sleek black carry-on. She looked like she traveled constantly, confident, professional. "Excuse me," she said. "I have a meeting in the city at 4:30. When should I leave the airport to make it on time?" "Where in the city?" I asked. "Downtown, the financial district." I did some quick math. I'd leave by 1500 to be safe. "Rush hour starts early here," she frowned. 1500? Is that a bus number? I paused. No, that's 3 p.m. in 24-hour time. Her expression shifted. Not embarrassed exactly. More like annoyed that she had to deal with this system. Right. Of course. Why don't you just say 3 p.m.? We do, I said. Just in 24-hour format. She walked away shaking her head. I heard her on the phone a minute later. Yeah, they use this weird clock system here. I can't figure out when anything happens. The weird thing? Both of these people probably handled complicated schedules back home. Meetings, flights, appointments. But the moment the clock format changed, they were lost, like their brains just shut off. I saw this play out again at Changi Airport in Singapore during a layover shift. An older American couple, maybe mid-60s, stood at the departure board, looking completely lost. The husband kept checking his watch, then the board, then his watch again. "Can I help you?" I asked. "We're trying to find our gate," the wife said. "But all these times are wrong." I looked at their boarding pass. Their flight was at 18:30. 6:30 p.m. "Your flight is right there," I said, pointing to the board. "Gate C12, boards at 1800. The husband shook his head. "That says 18:30. Our flight is at 6:30. I took a breath. 18:30 is 6:30 p.m. Subtract 12 from any number over 12. And you get the p.m. time. They both stared at me like I'd just spoken in ancient Greek. The wife pulled out her phone and opened the calculator app. She typed in 18 minus 12. Got 6. Then she looked at her husband and said, "Okay, I guess that works." They walked toward their gate, but I could hear them talking. The husband said, "They should just label things properly." The wife agreed. Neither of them seemed to consider that maybe this was the proper way. And they were the ones out of sync. The worst part? This wasn't unique to time formats. I saw the same confusion with dates. Constantly. At Frankfurt Airport, a young woman, early 20s, came to the check-in counter. She handed me her booking confirmation. "I'm here for my flight to Athens," she said. I scanned the paper. "Ma'am, this flight is for next month. Today is 12 March. Your flight is 12 April. She grabbed the paper back. "No, look! It says right here, 4/12. That's April 12th. Today," I pointed to the format explanation at the bottom. "That's 12 April. Day comes first. Then month." Her face went red. "That's the dumbest system I've ever heard of. How is anyone supposed to know that?" "It's printed right here," I said, showing her the note. DMYYY format. She booked a new flight. Cost her 300 euros. She was furious the entire time, like it was the airline's fault. Before she left, she said, "You guys really need to fix your calendars." I just nodded. What else could I do? My friend Paula works as a cashier at the duty-free shop in Auckland Airport. She's from New Zealand. Been doing the job for 6 years. She told me a story once that I still think about. It was a busy Saturday afternoon. An seat. American family came through. Mom, Dad, 2 kids around 8 and 10. They loaded up on chocolates, stuffed kiwi toys, and a couple bottles of wine, standard tourist haul. The total came to 240 New Zealand dollars. The dad pulled out his wallet and handed Paula $300 in cash. "Keep the change," he said, already walking toward the exit. Paula called after him. "Sir, I can't accept this." He turned around, confused. "Why not? It's more than enough." "We don't take US dollars here," she explained. "Only New Zealand dollars or card." The dad looked genuinely shocked. "But it's an airport. You have to take dollars." Paula shook her head. "No, we don't. This is New Zealand. We use New Zealand currency." The mom jumped in. "Can't you just convert it or something?" "There's a currency exchange office down the hall," Paula said, pointing. "You can exchange it there and come back." The dad didn't move. He just stared at her like she was making it up. "This is ridiculous. Dollars are dollars. Everyone takes dollars." "Not here." Paula said, staying calm. But she told me later. This wasn't the first time. Not even close. Eventually, the mom used a credit card, but the dad spent the entire transaction muttering about how backward the system was. The thing is, this happens everywhere. Americans assume their currency is universal, like it's not even a question. I track these assumptions across every continent I work on, and I break them down here so you understand the why, not just the what. That's what this channel does differently. If you want travel intelligence instead of travel gossip, subscribe. Now, let me show you how this exact pattern played out at Incheon Airport in South Korea. A businessman, American, probably in his early 50s, ordered a latte. The price was 5,000 won, about $4. He handed me a $20 bill. I handed it back. "We only take one or card," I said. He looked at the bill. Then at me. "This is $20. You're telling me you won't take this?" "Correct," I said. "There's an ATM around the corner." He didn't go to the ATM, he just stood there, holding the 20, like if he waited long enough I'd change my mind. Finally, he said, "Fine, forget it," and walked away, without his coffee. The wildest version of this happened to my colleague at Istanbul Airport. An American woman in her 30s tried to buy a scarf at a gift shop. The price was 150 Turkish lira, about €5 at the time. She pulled out a €50 note. The clerk explained they only took lira or card. The woman got upset. Euro is European money. Turkey is basically Europe. You have to take this. The clerk, very patiently, explained that Turkey uses lira, not euros. The woman argued for a solid 5 minutes. She kept saying things like, "But you're so close to Europe, and this doesn't make any sense." Eventually, she used her card, but before she left, she turned to the clerk and said, "You're losing customers with this policy." The clerk told me later she just smiled and nodded. What else could she do? But it's not just about currency itself. It's about how Americans think about money. The denominations, the coins, everything. At Barcelona Airport, I watched an American guy try to pay for a sandwich with a €50 note. The sandwich cost €3. The cashier, a young Spanish woman, explained she didn't have enough change. "Can you use a smaller bill or a card?" she asked. The guy pulled out his wallet. He had a €100 note, 2 50s, and nothing smaller. "This is all I have," he said. The cashier suggested he break one of the bills at the currency exchange first. The guy seemed annoyed. "Why don't you just have change? What kind of place doesn't have change?" The cashier explained it was early in the morning. Her register had just opened. She didn't have enough small bills yet. He ended up using his card, but the whole time, he was shaking his head. Like this was some kind of system failure. The funniest part? Americans do this with coins too. I was working at a train ticket counter at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris when a woman in her late 20s came up. She wanted a ticket to the city center. The price was €10. She dumped a handful of coins on the counter. Euros, sure, but also some US quarters mixed in. She didn't even notice. I had to pick through the pile and separate them out. "These aren't euros," I said, handing back the quarters. She looked at them, surprised. "Oh, I thought they were the same size." They weren't even close to the same size, but she just grabbed coins from her bag and assumed they'd work. The absolute strangest thing I've ever witnessed happened. At Oslo Airport in Norway, I was working as a gate agent during the summer rush. An American man in his 40s approached the desk with his boarding pass. His flight was to Bergen, a city on Norway's west coast, domestic flight. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm trying to get to Bergen. Is this the right gate? Yes, I said. This is the Bergen flight. He nodded. Then he asked, how long is the flight to Bergen, Montana? I blinked. Sir, this flight goes to Bergen, Norway. Not Montana. His face went blank. What? Bergen, the Norwegian city. You're in Norway right now. He looked around the terminal, like he was seeing it for the first time. I thought this was Sweden. No, I said slowly. This is Oslo, in Norway. He pulled out his phone, opened a map app, and I watched him zoom in on his location. His face went pale. Oh my God, I'm in the wrong country. Turns out, he'd booked a flight to Oslo, thinking it was in Sweden. Then he'd seen Bergen on the departures board, and assumed it was Bergen, Montana. Somehow accessible from Europe. He'd been traveling for 18 hours and hadn't once checked where he actually was. I helped him rebook his actual flight. He missed his meeting, cost him over $1,000 in fees and new tickets. The whole time he kept saying, these countries are so small. How is anyone supposed to keep them straight? That was extreme, but honestly, smaller versions of this happened all the time. At Vienna Airport, an American college student asked me which terminal the Prague flight left from. I told her it was in Terminal 3. She thanked me, then asked, and how long is the layover between Prague and Austria? You're in Austria right now, I said. Vienna is the capital. She looked confused. Wait, I thought Prague was the capital of Austria. Prague is the capital of the Czech Republic, I explained. Vienna is Austria. She pulled up her itinerary, stared at it for a long moment. Then she said, well, they're both in Europe. That's all that matters. I didn't know what to say to that. At Athens Airport, I watched an American family panic because they couldn't find their gate for a flight to Santorini. The mom kept saying, we're supposed to fly to Greece, but all the signs say we're in Athens. A Greek information agent had to explain, very carefully, that Athens is in Greece. The mom looked embarrassed, but the dad tried to play it off. Well, you know, it's easy to get confused with all these old names. The agent just smiled politely. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. But the geography problem isn't just about capitals and countries. It's about Americans not understanding distance, scale, how close things actually are. At Lisbon Airport, a retired American couple asked me about renting a car to drive to Barcelona. We want to see Spain while we're here, the husband said. I pulled up a map. That's a 9-hour drive, I said. Maybe consider flying instead. The wife looked shocked. 9 hours? But they're right next to each other on the map. Yes, I said. But Portugal and Spain are both large countries. It's not a quick trip. They ended up not going. They couldn't believe it would take that long. The husband kept saying, back home, we drive 9 hours all the time. But that's because America is big. I didn't point out that Europe is also big. I just nodded and helped them book a local tour instead. The most memorable geography incident happened at Dubai International Airport. Was working late shift at the transit desk when an American woman in her 30s approached. She looked frantic. I need to get to India, she said. But I can't find the domestic terminal. India is a different country, I said. You'll need an international flight, she stared at me. Wait, I thought Dubai was in India. No, I said. Dubai is in the United Arab Emirates. India is about 3 hours away by plane. She looked at her phone, then at me, then back at her phone. That can't be right. My friend told me Dubai was near India. It's in the same region, I said. But it's a different country. She ended up rebooking her entire trip. She'd planned a whole itinerary, thinking she could just walk between cities. When I explained that India and the UAE have different currencies, different languages, and require different visas. She looked like her brain was short-circuiting. Before she left, she said, "Why don't they teach us this stuff in school?" I didn't have an answer for that. The best story I've saved for last. It happened at Helsinki Airport in Finland. During December, snow was falling outside. The terminal was packed with holiday travelers. An American man, probably in his 50s, came up to my counter at customer service. He was wearing shorts, flip-flops, tank top. In December, in Finland, where it was negative 15 Celsius outside, I need to file a complaint, he said. About what? I asked. The weather report lied to me. It said 15 degrees today. That's warm, but it's freezing out there. I looked at him, at his outfit, at the snow visible through the windows. "Sir," I said carefully, "that's 15 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit." He blinked. "What's the difference?" I explained. 15 Celsius is about 59 Fahrenheit cold, but not freezing. But negative 15 Celsius, that's 5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's dangerously cold, especially in shorts. His face changed as he processed this, so I'm dressed for the wrong temperature. "Yes," I said. He looked down at his flip-flops, then at the snow. Then he said, "Do you sell jackets here?" I directed him to a shop. He bought a heavy winter coat, thermal pants, boots, gloves, spent about 200 euros. The whole time, he kept muttering about how they should specify which degrees they mean. Before he left, he turned to me and said, "You know what? I think I need to start reading the fine print when I travel." I watched him walk away, bundled up like he was heading to the Arctic. And I thought, yeah, that might help. The thing about airports is this. They're designed to move people between worlds, different languages, different systems, different ways of thinking. And somewhere in that transition, Americans get lost, not because they're careless, not because they're rude, but because they expect the whole world to work the way it does in the one place. They know best. I've seen it happen thousands of times. The confusion, the frustration, the moment when someone realizes that normal isn't universal. And honestly, most of them adjust. They figure it out. They laugh about it later. But in that moment, standing in an airport somewhere far from home, trying to decode a clock, or a currency, or a map that doesn't match their expectations, they're genuinely lost, and that is the real reason Americans fail at airports. Not because they're failing at travel, but because they're learning, sometimes for the first time, that the world is bigger and stranger and more complicated than any departure board can show. These stories never stop coming, and I'll keep decoding them, whether you subscribe or not. But here's what subscribers get every week. Otsusi, I bring you another layer of this cross-cultural intelligence, the kind that keeps you 3 steps ahead when you're standing in an unfamiliar terminal at 2 a.m., exhausted and confused. If you've made it this far, you already know you're not here for surface-level travel content. You're here because you think critically about how the world works. Subscribe, and I'll make sure you never run out of that perspective.